Hello, genealogists. It's Craig again from Just Genealogy. Today we're going to talk about the National Archives Microfilm Catalog per request of one of our subscribers. So that's what we're going to work on today. I use the microfilm catalog a lot. So the first place to go to get to it is to archives.gov. And in fact, today, or rather I should say yesterday, the 1950 census started. So y'all are probably all working on that. I decided not to talk about it because everybody else is. But you can bet this evening or tomorrow or someday when the crowd dies down a little bit, I'm going to be looking for my parents and grandparents and all those folks in the 1950 census. I was born in 51, so I miss it. Till next time. 10 more years. Anyway, this is the National Archives homepage. What we want to do here is we want to research our records, that first block up there on the left-hand side. This is where you're going to spend most of your time as a genealogist. And when you click on that research your records, or our records, it will take you to a screen that looks like this. And there are many things on this screen that you should explore, take a look at. Over time, I'll talk about each one of them, I hope. I'm intimately familiar with almost all of them, not all of them, but I use most of them most of the time. But the one we care most about today is in the other online research tools, going down 4 lines to the microfilm catalog. The other thing that we're going to be interested in today, because of the microfilm catalog, is the links to records digitized by our partners. And I'll show you how to get to that one other way. When you click on this microfilm catalog spot, it will take you to a screen that looks like this. Now, initially, I'm going to take you through the Browse NARA's microfilm catalog, but generally, you're not going to do that. Generally, you're going to go a little bit farther to the right and up to the word Advanced Search. So today, first, I'm going to click on the Browse NARA's microfilm catalog a few times, but for the most part, your interest is actually going to be in Advanced Search. Now, when you browse on NARA's microfilm catalog, it takes you to a alpha listing by publications number. So all the first ones, these begin with A. Now this is sorted, so it'll go things like A1, A10, A100, A1000 instead of A1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. An A publication is a publication that came from somewhere else and was brought into the archives for some reason. It generally comes to the archives as a microfilm publication, and then it's assigned an A and made an NARA publication. On occasion, rare occasions, sometimes these A publications will be converted further, like by the creation of a descriptive pamphlet or something else, into an M publication. But that I've only seen that happen once. So it's really not that important in the scheme of things. C publications, these are publications that have been done under contract. So it seems like these, a contractor would come in, do something for some purpose, and then the microfilm publication was created. The DNs, these are all letters that are over in the left-hand corner. The DNs, I think, mean digital publication. In other words, it's not available on microfilm. It's only available digitally. And notice there's only 3 of those. GR, I think, stands for gift collection. And there are many different codes for gift collection. A gift collection is when someone gives something to the archives, and all of the gift collection things are in a separate record group. And then LM, I think, means external, because it looks like it's something that existed outside of the archives and somehow came to it, meaning I would think it belonged to the gift collection. But again, these issues really aren't important as long as you know what the title of what you're looking for is. Most publications are going to be M's or T's or P's. An M usually means that the publication has a descriptive pamphlet and I'll talk about that in a bit. A P is a preservation copy, meaning that it generally came from an agency. A good example of preservation copies would be Navy ship muster rolls. So it could be another example of early preservation copies were ship manifest lists or ship passenger lists. Those were all Ps. There are many more Ps that are in the catalog. And basically you're going to find those through the various finding aids where it tells you that something is in microfilm. These are the published ones. Most preservation copies are not, quote, published. T, this means that it's a NARA publication that generally has a roll list, not a descriptive pamphlet. And I'll show you an example of that also. And then Z, again, belongs in the gift collection. It's still not clear to me why so many things are in the gift collection with so many different codes. As you're also looking at the catalog, you may notice that there will be, in this example, T822, which is a cross-index to the central files of the Adjutant General's office from World War I to just prior to World War II. You'll note it says A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. These are in 200 roll increments. So T822A is rolls 1 to 200. B is rolls 201 to 400. Doesn't mean anything. Just don't be surprised by seeing the same thing multiple times. It just means that there's more than 200 rolls. So when you click on Advanced Search, that will take you to this screen. Now, if I know the publication number, I'm going to put it in there. If I know a piece of the title or the title, I'm going to put it in there. I rarely put the entire title. Generally, if I know what record group number I'm in, I'm going to put the record group number in just to see what's available from that record group, but not generally when I'm looking for something specific. In other words, I might put in 94, the records of the Adjutant General, record group 94, and see what is in fact has been part of the microfilm publication program. For example, what compiled military service records are available for the Mexican War, for example, would be something I would be looking for. I rarely use record group title. I do use the viewing location just to see how far and wide it is, and I'll show you that in a second. Subject terms I may use if I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Subject catalog, there are various catalogs that I'll show you in a minute that you could be picking from. And the coverage start date, coverage and end date, I very rarely worry about that at all. So again, in Advanced Search, you're probably going to be dealing with a publication number if you know it. Like I know what T817 is. Those are U.S. pensioners 1818 to 1872. So I know what that number is. Publication title, I would probably put in something like U.S. pensioners or 1818 to 1872 to get to it. Or I would put in record group 217 and it would pop up that way. I rarely, again, would not use the record group title and not look at the viewing location normally. When it got to the subject catalog on the other side of the page, these are the various microfilm subject catalogs that are available. I probably have paper copies of all these, and I used to use them often. I don't use them much anymore because I'm just so familiar with them now, and I'm using the same things pretty much over and over again. And the one I was using the most was the military service records, and I probably have that one etched into my brain. And because of Ancestry, whereas 30 years ago I was looking in the population census and the immigrant and passenger arrival microfilm catalogs all the time to find the right roll of microfilm, the right microfilm publication. Because of Ancestry, I don't have to do that very much anymore. I really haven't dealt much with federal court records, although I'm thinking about doing that in the future, and diplomatic records the same way. Usually with the diplomatic records, I just come right here and look to see if there's a consulate kind of thing. I don't deal generally with Black Studies and American Indians, but I'm aware of the microfilm catalog's existence and where those records are. On the other side, the viewing location, these are all the places that have a selected piece of microfilm, and there may be more. This just happens to be what I was looking for at the time. But generally, they are going to be in the National Archives Building 1, National Archives Building, Archives 1 in Washington, D.C. If I'm going to use them, sometime they may be out in College Park, is a function of time frame. I'm not sure, but I think what they did when they created Archives 2 out in College Park, they split the microfilm collection so that there was microfilm in College Park and microfilm in downtown DC, and there wasn't much overlap between them, but I may be wrong when it comes to that, because I don't normally deal with modern stuff out at College Park anyway, so I just don't know. So when I look at record group 94, for example, this is what shows up when I put in the record group. Notice it just is listing the microfilm that exists out there in record group 94. If you look at record groups, you'll see that it's all 94. And these are all the records of the Adjutant General's office. So letters received by the Office of the Adjutant General, main series, 1871 to 1880. Now, if you go down a little bit, there's the compiled service records of former Confederate soldiers who served in the 1st through the 6th U.S. Volunteer Infantry Regiments, 1864 to 1866. These are the compiled military service records for the galvanized Yankees. And notice that they are available by partners. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, what that means. So when we go and look at, for example, compiled military service records of volunteer soldiers who served during the Mexican War in Mormon organizations, that's available as M351, and it is available to view at Rocky Mountain Archives 1 and Pacific Alaska region. So those are the 3 facilities where this microfilm can be viewed. So what I'm interested in, though, is this view important publication details. Remember that the prices shown in these publication details are no longer valid because they describe a time when microfilm was inexpensive as compared to today where it's expensive. So when you click on this view important publication details, it will take you to the pamphlet accompanying microcopy number 351. This is known as a descriptive pamphlet. I always look at the descriptive pamphlets before I look at microfilm, especially if I've never looked at that microfilm before. There are, I shouldn't say always, because there's some microfilm I'm so familiar with that I don't need to look at the pamphlet, but I often will look at the pamphlet in order to orient me towards what's on the microfilm, what it is really about, what order things are found in, and those kind of things. So as part of this descriptive pamphlet, there is information about, one, the number of rolls. So it says on the 3 rolls of this microfilm publication, okay, that's good to know, are reproduced the compiled military service records of volunteer soldiers in 2 Mormon organizations that served in the Mexican War. That's good to know. Now I know there were 2 organizations. One was the Mormon Battalion Volunteers, which was organized in Council Bluffs, Iowa. If you know Michael Strauss, he reenacts a member of the Mormon Battalion who was enlisted at Council Bluffs, Iowa. And it tells you about the battalion, 5 companies, en route to California, enlisted for 1 year, and that sort of information. Then the second Mormon organization is designated as Captain Davis, Company A, Mormon Volunteers, which served for 6 months. So I wouldn't, off the top of my head, I wouldn't know those things. I would want to know which one of the 3 roles I was looking at, that kind of thing, and that would orient me. And then it tells me about how these records were, what they consist of, how they were created. And like most compiled military service records, if not all of them, they were all compiled by Major Fred C. Ainsworth's Record and Pension Office clerks. Fred C. Ainsworth is my hero. He'll eventually become a brigadier general. He's a medical officer. He'll eventually become adjutant general of the Army as a medical officer. Interesting. And eventually he'll be asked to retire prior to his court-martial because he was pretty much insubordinate, loudmouth know-it-all who always thought he was right. I don't know anybody like that. Those of you who are laughing, I still appreciate you. So anyway, so basically, it also tells us that there's an alphabetical card index to these volunteers who served in the Mexican War, but recognize these are the records themselves. So there's an index also, and that's what it's telling you. So they then go and tell you what else you can do. If an application for a pension or bounty land warrant was made, additional information can be found elsewhere. Then they will give you a roll list. So here we see the 3 rolls. The Mormon Battalion is on all 3 rolls. A to G is on the first roll. Surnames beginning with H and ending R on the second roll. And the third roll consists of surnames beginning with S and ending with Z. And Captain Davis's Company A of Mormon Volunteers. And it costs much more than $7, so please ignore that. So this gives you an idea about what it is. So this gives you an idea about what a descriptive pamphlet looks like. They come in color, they come in black and white, they come in a variety of sizes, not really a variety of sizes, but they come in a variety of colors and thickness. Some of them are huge, and I've talked to you before about the Georgia Militia between the Revolution and the War of 1812 in a previous discussion, and I showed you that book, so you can see how thick they sometimes can be. This one is actually rather thin. Now, looking at someone else, at another microfilm, looking at a different microfilm, looking at T1085, muster rolls and payrolls of militia and regular army organizations in the Battle of Tippecanoe, November 1811. This is before the War of 1812 and is part of the Creek War. Andrew Jackson is involved. These are again part of Record Group 95, the records of the Adjutant General's Office, and it's only viewable at Archives 1 in Washington, D.C. And when we click on those important publication details, remember that this is a T publication, so our expectation is that they will provide us a roll list. Unfortunately, since this, as an example, there's only 1 roll, so therefore the roll list consists of 1 roll. But I've seen roll lists go on for 40 and 50 pages. So an example would be petitions for naturalization in the Southern District of New York would be a good example. That I think is M 1879. And that actually is a microfilm that is also available through the catalog, which I'll show you how to get to in a second. And the second is here. So if you remember, looking at the listing, in the far right-hand column, there were the words available by partners and available by catalog. Now, what I do to get to partners, normally I just go into the search block and type in partners, and this shows up. You can also go back to the Research Our Records screen, and the digitization list of partners is also available through that screen, but that, in my mind, it's easier just to type partners into the search block and it shows up. So this lists all of the series of records, microfilm publications and otherwise, that have been digitized by Ancestry, Family Search, or some other partner. Full 3 would be an example of some other, excuse me. So what this provides is a list of the microfilm publications and other things for that matter that are either have been microfilmed or in the process of being microfilmed or have been agreed to be microfilmed by Fold 3, Ancestry, Family Search, or some other partner. And this basically is a list of all these things. So what I like to do is go to this list and look for something either here or in the microfilm catalog. And if it's already been done by a partner and it's complete, then I need to go to that site to find it. So there are many things on Fold 3 that are originally NARA microfilm, and then I'm going to go directly to Fold 3 instead of looking for it on the archives.gov website. Now what I am going to do Because sometimes Fold 3, Ancestry, Family Search, whatever, it's not that they just get it wrong. It's that sometimes, especially in the past, not so much today, but in the past, citation was a problem for them. Ancestry is guilty of this all the time, where they rename something. So you want to go find what microfilm publication Ancestry used and then find out what the real name is. And you can also use the roll list to find out what roll something's on if you want a more complete citation. I really don't like using citations that use paid subscription websites. I like, going back to the original, which in this case would be the NARA microfilm to begin with. Now remember, the other place said available in catalog. Well, you can go through that screen that we looked at first and research our records and click on catalog. And that will take you to this screen. And then I type in the names of people in this screen. I type in the names of records in this screen. I type in anything I want to my heart's content to see what might show up. You never know what'll show up. Good example is this is where I would type petitions for naturalization and then the place, because there must be 100 or 200 petitions for naturalization series of records based on location. And this is a good way to find out whether it's been digitized by NARA or whether it's been digitized by a partner, where it is, how to use it, is there an index available for it, all that kind of stuff. So this is one of the #1 places that I use to throw somebody's name into. Every time I have a new ancestor, regardless of who it is, I plug them into here just to see what might pop up. Does something pop up every single time? Absolutely not. Does something pop up every once in a while? Absolutely. So this is a very important screen to have as a genealogist. Well, today we've been talking about the NARA Microfilm Catalog. I hope this has been helpful to you. This is Just Genealogy, converting people doing genealogy into genealogists day by day. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow's book day. I forgot to record, didn't I? Son of a turkey.